Welcome to Marvel Champions podcast about Marvel Champions, the card game. I'm your host, Scott, and with me as always, my co-host, Ryan.
I think it is time to give the people what they want. The conclusion of the Age of Apocalypse.
It has taken us quite a bit of time to get here, but that would be fitting for such a large villain, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty giant task to undertake.
Yes, biomorph. Ah, dang it.
I got the easy one.
You did. Giant. Yeah.
Yes, that's right, people. We are talking about Apocalypse, the fifth villain of the Age of Apocalypse box. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. En Sabah Nur.
Mm-hmm.
Is that close enough?
That's good enough for me.
Yeah, I watched a video one time that says that when they originally created the character, they actually did his name wrong. It's a mispronunciation. I don't know if they fixed it since or not, so whatever.
Hey, that's what FFG went with, so we'll allow it.
Yes. So, Scott, were you excited for this one?
So I was excited because once they slow played these, right? They revealed like the first three, then they slow played, releasing what the last couple of scenarios were. And when I think of Apocalypse, this is the Apocalypse I think of. So I was very happy to see this.
Yeah, he's got the classic giant A belt buckle. He's ready to go.
Yep, this is the Apocalypse I think of when I think of 90s kid Scott growing up. This is the Apocalypse.
So, not to get into... I'm going to kind of sidetrack a little bit, so we're not going to talk about what's on the cards, but what did you think about the idea of this being a three-sided villain?
Well, I figured it was a matter of time, right? They just needed the right villain to make that concept work. And, I think maybe they just have like a stack of unused three-sided blanks that they were like trying to get rid of. I'm like, we got to do something with all these. We've already used it on 3 different heroes. So let's figure out a villain to use. And I think it worked, at least for me. I like the concept. I like the flipping. It changes the game. I think you could probably do this for other villains, or you could even like make the almost like a multi-villain scenario with a triple-sided card. So
yeah, I think you're right. I think you could do multi-villain, or just like a different villain that's changing, like Apocalypse is. He's morphing around. But yeah, I like it. I like the fun mechanism that is for like Ant-Man and Wasp of opening the card up and stuff, and it's a little unique to do it for the villain. So it's fun to do that.
Yep, I liked it. I was going to ask you that question, so good job.
Yes, again, I beat you to it.
You did.
That's why I get paid the big bucks.
All right, Ryan, why don't you tell me which one of these is your favorite form?
Ooh, okay. So there's Giant Form, Cyberpath Form, and Biomorph Form. I could tell you that I don't like Cyberpath because of Retaliate.
Okay.
That one wasn't my favorite. You know what? I don't know. They all... Well, let me answer it this way. One of the reasons why I like this version of Apocalypse is the 3 sides not only have unique, like, constant abilities. So, Biomorph's got Overkill, the Cyberpath version's got Retaliate 1, and the Giant Form's got Stalwart. I think that's cool. But then they have force responses when they flip to that form, and that force response isn't necessarily tied completely with that static ability.
Yeah, his force response remind me a lot of like Ant-Man,
Did you
where
say Aunt May?
Ant-Man.
Oh yeah, that double-sided Aunt May hero.
Yes. Cookies.
Yeah,
So I liked that because but they weren't like brutal.
they
Like they
weren't
added
brutal, which I
just
liked.
enough and they were unique enough where each side did its own thing independent of the other, and it just kind of varied the game up. And I also liked that like you could do your best to try and plan out a turn, but whether it was a boost or an encounter card, it could kind of mess with your best laid plans.
Yeah, yeah. I think overall, I think I like being in Biomorph Apocalypse the most. He was the one scheme to attack, and he has the overkill, and he does one indirect. Generally, I can handle the one indirect. Overkill, I don't do a ton of chump blocking, anyways. So it wasn't a huge factor. And then just the 1/2 stat line, just for the standard one stage. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I don't want to get bogged down with his values, but he has one side's balanced, one side's a little more scheme heavy, one side's a little more attack heavy. And then, like you had pointed out, one has overkill, and then you have to do indirect, which isn't awful. One has retaliate, and then its force response makes you put one scheme on each scheme or one threat on each scheme in play, which can be bad. He's got a permanent side scheme, so it's always adding to there. And then his giant form is stalwart, and it heals him when he flips to that one. So.
Yeah. I know we have talked about steady and stalwart, but how do you feel about stalwart in this scenario?
I like it. I like that it goes away and it comes and goes based off his form. I think it really changes the game when it's just like a permanent, always constant. I do like when they can factor in a way to kind of manipulate that. For example, like with steady, I like how with the Magneto scenario, you deal with it for most of the game, but there comes a point where it gets negated, and I like that. And this one, it's good in that way. Like if you have a hero that's very stun, confuse, lock heavy, it doesn't completely make them completely useless.
Yeah. I played a game of Venom Goblin solo not too long ago, and he's got steady as just a keyword on him, and it never goes away. So it was a pain to have to deal with that, especially in his scenario where he's like constantly trying to activate to influence the main scheme.
Yeah.
So it was nice to like you said, having stalwart come and go. And so it creates a very fun, unique, like if he's in giant form, like nothing's going to work on him as far as status cards. But if not, then yeah, let's do it. But then he can always flip on you in a moment's notice, and you're like, oh, dang it, my confuse went away.
Right.
Like that's an exciting moment. That's enjoyable.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. That's what I liked about it.
Right on. Shall we move to main schemes, or is there something else you want to talk about the forms?
No, I think each of the forms are well balanced. I think they do what they need to do, and they do it well. And then, I mean, just like the nice thing about the game is, standard, it's bad. First stage, second stage, it's a little worse. Third stage, it's pretty heavy. So it's good scaling too.
Yeah, he's got a lot of hit points, but I mean, as a fifth villain, he should. So
right, as a big bad, he definitely should.
Yep. All right, so main schemes. So he has two main schemes, but they're basically the exact same. Other than the second one, you lose the game if it goes out. Other than that, I think the force response on there is the same.
Yeah. I have one question before we jump there. So 1A setup says start in a certain form and then deal each player a face down encounter card. What's your thoughts on that mechanism of just adding an additional encounter card to start the game? There's a few villains that do that.
I'm kind of mixed. I think in general, I'm not the biggest fan of like going ahead and here's a face down encounter card, have fun. I think there's a reason why, not expert, but heroic has the extra encounter card. It's for the difficulty. I don't think you don't need to simulate basically a first round heroic to like make the bad guy bad. I mean, you should be able to do it through the natural process of the game. I don't know if that made sense.
Right. Yeah, I think thematically sometimes it works. I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent on it. I can see it. In some it's fine. In some it's like, ooh, that's just piling on a little bit right on the front end. That's ooh.
Yeah. I think this one, for me, I see it more as they're trying to put more encounter cards to hopefully have him start flipping around.
Sure.
So I think that's what they're trying to do. I just don't know if it's my favorite. It just gets harder when it's like multiplayer and you're dealing with a bunch of encounter cards. There's a chance you could get your nemesis out, and that really wrecks you. And so it's just kind of, I don't know. I think I'm leaning more towards I'd rather not see just a dealing encounter card, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
1B. So his concept here is after step 1 of the villain phase, you put a power counter on there, and then once there's 4, you discard the 4 counters, and then try and find a superpower card. And I think almost every single one of his cards are superpower. Yeah, so
yep,
you should find one pretty quick. Meals the deck a little bit, that speeds up the game, and then you got to deal with whatever his superpower is. And we'll get to, I think, a couple of those. They're all kind of the same card, just in one of 3 variations due to his forms. And then 2A, let's see, the first player discards cards from the top of the encounter deck until a superpower card is discarded and reveals it. So it's like you almost deal with that forced response 1 additional time. Thresholds are fairly average, 8 and 10. But I was sitting here, like, I never really felt like threat was such a big worry. And so it's a threat of 8 threshold. And everybody's always like, Rhino, you can have 1 bad turn and the game ends. So you always like think Rhino's right on like 1 turn verge of just advancing on you. But it's only 1 threshold higher. But I don't know. It's a mental thing. I don't know.
I think in this case, I agree with you. For some reason, 7 or 8 is bigger, like a lot bigger than 7, even though it's just 1 off. But I think a little bit in this particular circumstances, there is a 2A to follow it. So if you fail, your game's not over. Where Rhino, it's game over.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, because the second one, it's 10 threat, and then it's game over, which is definitely more manageable. Solo 20 threat for 2 players, very manageable. So,
right. All right, Ryan. He's got some fun cards, but I've noticed something unique just looking through them here, and that is boost icons. Did you notice that all of his treacheries and attachments have no boost icons? They're all boost abilities.
Honestly, I don't think I really ever noticed, even though I've played this scenario several times, except for his side schemes.
They're all the same.
They have all 3s.
Yeah, but that's the first I noticed that. Maybe he's not pounding you in the face. He's doing a death by 1,000 cuts by doing all of this changing and forced responsing on you.
Yep. Which I like, because it promotes that changing the effects of the game. So I like that.
I agree.
So, but yeah, this is an interesting encounter set because there's a lot of the same cards just in different form versions. Which yeah, why not?
Yeah, and most of them are like that, right? It says change to this form. If he's already in that form, he activates. If not, you change to it. You usually place one power counter, so it's making that mechanism speed up. Or the boost on it is change to whatever form it tells you to change after he activates. So he's constantly flipping, constantly causing those forced responses to go off. So kind of like we said earlier, you can try and plan as best as you can, but he's got multiple ways in his villain phase to be flipping and messing with you.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting because it can be very hot or cold because a lot of his treacheries are when revealed. If Apocalypse is in this form, he activates. Otherwise, you change and throw a counter on it. And if he's not in that form, it's not that bad of an encounter card. You're like, okay, fine. That happens. Boo-hoo. Oh, well. We'll move on. But if you're unlucky and he keeps activating in that form that he's in, he can hit a lot or scheme a lot.
I do like that duality of the card. How it can be like bad and feel like, just an additional assault or something. Or it can just kind of be like, he changed forms,
Yeah.
I do like that. And I felt like, I think like you said, for us, at least in the field, I don't think it hit the additional activation as much as just the simple changing forms did.
Yeah, I would agree. It definitely felt like either we felt like we were lucky or it was just that's the way it lands. I don't know if most people feel the same way, that it just doesn't hit all the time, but it still hits because he's still changing and doing things.
Yes, he's still very active. I did want to just call out his attachment. That art on that's pretty cool. He's just looks like a giant fist. He's gonna punch you right in the face.
I mean, honestly, I think this art on the villain, as like the entire villain art, is pretty on point.
It looks like most of it's commissioned too, except for the side schemes.
Yeah.
A
lot of good images.
Yep, I concur.
So, the side schemes, I just want to do a quick thing on them. I think they're pretty interesting. I definitely feel that Source of Power, which is the one that's when it's defeated, you go to Biomorph, and it has the Amplify icon. I think that is the one that is the least threatening out of the other two. Plugged In has the Crisis, and the Giant Growth has the Hazard icons. So those two you want to get rid of fairly quickly. But Source of Power, I think we once played where we kind of stayed out for a while.
Yeah, and I do like the feel of them because they're all, roughly the same. When defeated, if Apocalypse is in X form, he activates. Otherwise, you change to X form and you give him a tough status card. Yep. So you really have to make that decision as a player. Do I want to just deal with the additional activation, or do I want to deal with the tough? And in some cases, and then so with that, it's like I can time it, right? So like if he's in that form, I just don't deal with it, and hopefully he switches in the villain phase, and then I can deal with it the next one. Or can I do something to get him to flip, and then so I don't have to deal with it? Or do I have someone that has piercing, and I don't really care about a tough, or is tough a big deal? Would I rather take the additional activation?
Yep. But
yeah, and they all have a static of 5. I don't think you mentioned that, but
no.
Same thing with this Age of Apocalypse box. We've seen a lot of these static values that aren't really scaling with player.
All right, now let's maybe swing on into the 2 new encounter sets for this one that's not used in the other parts of the campaign box. That is Celestial Tech and Clan Akaba. I hope I said that right.
Sure. Akaba. I don't know.
Akaba.
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 Who knows? I'm not Egyptian.
Write in and tell us how to say it correctly. Let's do Celestial Tech real quick. It's only 4 cards. It's Celestial Armor and Celestial Weapon. A big old sword. What do you think?
These were very intimidating when I first saw them in the little article release of these.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like they were, I don't know what to say, or I can't think of the word I want to say. Like they were good, but they weren't like awful. Like I did like them because when they activate, you discard based off the resource icon. They do one of 3 things, and if it's wild, they do all the things. And then you've got to hit the right one, so it's got to actually do something in order to get rid of it. That's the only way to get rid of it, which I like that mechanism.
Yeah, I am 100% behind you. When I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, these are terrible, as in like bad for us as the heroes. But I really didn't feel their presence in any of the games we've played with them. I mean, when they did come out, we were like, oh boy. But I think part of the reason why was I feel like you can manipulate them a little bit. Like you had
when we ran the campaign, I had magic.
So magic, thank you. I couldn't remember her name.
Manipulate that a little bit, knowing, if I was first, it was going to go off, or if I was second, it was going to go off.
Yeah. But overall, I mean, I think they're fine. I'd be interested to play with them on other villains, but we shall see. And it does come with a treachery that basically just activates it or brings it out.
Or fetches it, yeah. What did you think about having no increase in either scheming or attack? They both have a +0, but it attaches that forced interrupt.
Honestly, I'm kind of surprised. Normally, I would expect to at least have a 1, but I'm kind of glad it doesn't. I kind of like the idea that its focus isn't on increasing stats, but just doing other things based off whatever resource icon is revealed. I like that. And they're both, they have their own little niche. One's stun and discard and damage. The other one's healing, confuse, and tough. Like, they're different, they're unique. I don't think I need to see a +1 or 2 or whatever.
I agree 100%. I like that it didn't just needlessly add an additional 1. I think it played well with the forced interrupt.
Yeah, especially since getting rid of them, not only do you have to get stun or confused, but you may not even get that card, so it may stay out if you're unlucky the whole time.
Right. You have 50% chance, because if you get a wild, it does eventually do the one that makes it go away. But yeah, you could have a very heavy deck and a certain resource, and your chances go down to finally hit that. So
yeah. And then last but not least, the clan. Probably shouldn't say it like that. Clan Akaba or Akaba.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. What was your thoughts on this one?
I think thematically it was cool, right? It was just kind of like this secondary thing to deal with. It's very minion heavy. It's like his worshippers. I think thematically it works well. It does, I guess, probably the key stone, the center point of this one is the side scheme that comes with it. It's a permanent setup, ancient ritual. After threat is placed here, if there is at least 10 threat here, remove 5 threat from this scheme and deal each player a face down encounter card. And it has a starting value of 5 threat. So it's one of those where if you don't deal with it, it can have some bad consequences. A lot of the reveals for Apocalypse makes him continue to kind of do his thing, those forced responses. So more encounter cards is never a great thing. So it did kind of force a little bit of balance too. because a lot of his minions here, when you defeat him, it adds threat there. So it was just like an additional thing to deal with.
Yeah. I think this encounter set is like the gold standard for me of making a more difficult encounter set without being annoying. It has its own little like theme going on. It has this side scheme that it's all about. The side scheme's not devastating, but it's still something you kind of want to keep in check. And they're all trying to make that an issue for you, but it's not doing it in a incredibly annoying way. It's just piece by piece trying to get you. It's got minions that are easier to kill, but they have like guard, but they also, add threat, but they have harder ones that are going to be attacking you that have their own little stuff. I think this was just a really good balance of I guess you would call a harder encounter set. I definitely don't think it's the hardest, or probably even the top 5 hardest encounter sets, but I think it adds a good flavor to any scenario, a good little difficulty. So I really liked this one.
Yeah, it was good. The treachery in here was one that was like always one like I felt hit, because this big thing is when it's revealed he plays 5 threat on the ancient ritual. Mm-hmm. So you can get kind of lulled into that, like, well, I'm not quite at 10, I'm at like 6 or 7, so I'm good. And then that would always come out, and it would force the force response to go off.
Yeah.
And then I'm dealing with another encounter card at this phase because I was still in the encounter phase.
Yep. So. No, yeah, that's what I liked about it. I just think they really synergized well with each other, and it was just a very solid encounter set for me.
Yep. And I like what you said, they're good minions. They're not terribly difficult, but they're annoying to deal with. You've got a lot of decisions to make, so from that aspect of the game, I think it was well done.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. There's a lot of decisions to make, because I compare this to like what's that one? Has like the shark and the guy that confuses all the time from Guardians.
Collector.
It was
that one with the Menage a Trois medley or whatever it's called.
Yes, yes, that one. That one is just annoying. It's like you get those little phantoms like, oh, you're confused. Oh, you're confused again. You're confused. You're confused. You're confused. And it's like, stop, jeez. But this one doesn't do that. It makes sense. It's still putting pressure on you, but it doesn't have to do it directly and making your life miserable.
Right. Yeah.
So
good. Yeah, I'm with you. I think it adds a good balance to the scenario. It adds those additional encounter cards to kind of deal with, add some minions. So good.
Yeah. All right, I think we're at the point where we need to start doing some discussion of how good this scenario is.
All right, Ryan. And I think I've kind of been alluding to about a hot take, and I finally get to it.
I think that was like quite a few episodes ago. I'm glad you remembered.
Yes. So my hot take is, so this box was known for its second scenario, right? 4 horsemen, multi-villain. I think you had felt it was a little lackluster. But my hot take is, I think this is the best multi-villain scenario in the game currently.
Oh, interesting. You're considering it as a multi-villain scenario.
How it's set up and with what it's doing, I know it's technically not, but I view it as, and I think it's the best done.
That is a hot take. That is a hot take.
Smell that? It's a hot take.
I don't know if I would. Obviously, it's not a multi-villain scenario because multi-villain would imply there's multiple health markers, and there's not. But I see your point, and I would agree that I think the way it does having like multiple versions of a villain, it does it a lot better. I would categorize. Thank you. Good job, education. This in the same like area as like Loki, who he does multiple versions of himself, but it's the same health.
Okay.
But this one's better than Loki. Yeah, I definitely think this is better than Loki, and I would rather play this one than Horseman.
Yes.
But I agree. I think if they could just take the magic of how they made this one work to a true multi-villain, I think that would be best case scenario for their next opportunity.
Sure. Yeah.
And I mean, we have found out about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so maybe they'll have that version if we're lucky.
Who knows? Yeah, but I think overall this is probably I don't know, for me, to me it's the highlight of the box for scenarios. It was well done. I think this one shines.
Let me give you a little hot take. I think I'm kind of looking just to make sure I'm not crazy myself, but I might have to say this might be the best fifth villain since Red Skull for me.
Dang, that is a hot take. A lot of people like Magneto, so that's a big time.
I mean, no hate on Magneto. I mean, I think he has good things about him, but there's just aspects of it that I kind of struggle with. But man, I really liked this Apocalypse, and I really enjoyed Red Skull. I liked the mechanisms that he did and stuff, and just trying to go down the list. There'd be Ronin, not really a competition. Loki, this is a better version of that. Venom Goblin, he's a different beast. And then of course Magneto, like you said, I think Magneto would probably be the closest one to that.
Yep.
And for me, Strife is just a different version of Magneto in my opinion. So yeah, I think if I ranked the final bosses, it'd probably be Apocalypse, Red Skull, Magneto, Strife, and then probably Loki, then Ronin.
Yeah, I think that's how I do the same.
And if we count Mojo, I would probably throw him actually at.
He'd be up there in the top few. Obviously.
He'd be in the top 3. I'm not sure if he would overtake Red Skull. Or not,
I agree.
I really enjoyed Mojo.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Ryan. So high marks for some En Sabah Nur. Pretty good.
Yeah. I think he's a great villain. I think they really ending this X-Men cycle. I think they did great. This is a great ending.
Yeah, I think they did a good job. I think Apocalypse was one that you've got to do a good job on, and I think they hit that mark.
Yep. So good job, designers. You did great on this one.
Good job. Good on ya. So Ryan, we've kind of held back on ranking the 5 scenarios in the box. So why don't we do that real quick? This culmination of all the Apocalypse villains. So let's rank them.
All right. Are we number 5?
Number 5, yeah.
I don't want to be a hater, so this is not the worst of them. This is the one that.
But there just has to be a number 5. I mean, they have to.
There has to be a number 5. Yes.
And I think we're the same on this one.
My number 5 is
number 4.
My is the 4 Horsemen. Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. It just didn't live up to what I was hoping, and it just didn't. I don't know. It just felt very brutal, unnecessarily. I didn't feel like I was going on an adventure. I feel like I was getting punched in the face while I was down, and had to stand up while getting punched in the face.
Okay. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, there's got to be a number 5, and I think just out of the scenarios, this is the one that, yeah, it's a little unique and it plays a little different. It felt like it combined a few different scenarios into one, but I just felt like it was a little brutal. And yeah, got to be number 5. It's number 5.
What it is? What it is. All right, number 4. You go first.
So this one, I'm a little. I'm gonna go with, because some of my gripes on the flow of the scenario is why I'm gonna rank this one there. I definitely don't think it's a bad scenario. I just think it could have been executed slightly better, and that is gonna be Dark Beast.
Oh, right answer.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm with you. I think number 4 is Dark Beast. I was expecting more out of a 4th scenario, and especially it was trying to go with like this almost like time travel hopping thing, and it did not feel like I was time traveling hopping. It just felt like, oh, here's some encounter cards that you have to deal with now.
Here's some minions to deal with, because it's the 4th scenario.
Yeah, so I was a little disappointed that there wasn't more flavor with how the scenario went.
Yep. All right, Ryan. Hit us with number 3. Let's see what you got.
It is gonna be Eunice.
Ding,
His
ding, ding.
crazy soldiers.
His infinites. Yep.
Gene Pool.
His Gene in his pool. Yep. I'm with you. I think it's a solid first scenario for a box. Plays a lot with, keeping that side scheme in check. If not, you are going to have to suffer the consequences of that. So I liked that. Made the game play different depending on how well or how bad you were doing. And it's good.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very solid first scenario that I will probably come back to a couple times. Even testing, like deck ideas might be a good hero for that, or villain.
So based off the main portion of this episode, I think it's safe to say we know who's number 1 and who's number 2.
Well, we both know that Apocalypse is 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But the question is, which one?
The Apocalypse scenario for me is number 2. It plays good. It kind of has that dungeon crawl feel. You got to work your way through the dungeons, those levels of the dungeon to get to the final boss. Deal with the final boss. There's some beefy minions. It's good.
I don't know, man.
Oh, you're putting this one first.
I don't know. I'm having a lot of tough, a lot of back and forth because.
See, I can see you probably liking that one a little more. I think you like that style of play from a scenario more than I do.
Yes. I think I'll just go with it for the sake of the views.
Do it.
I think I'm going to do Apocalypse, the 3rd scenario, as number 1.
Okay, so we're going to do it.
Apocalypse, final boss, as number 2. And I'll tell you why, my friend.
Please tell me.
My brother. I think as a whole package, I think final boss Apocalypse is the better scenario. I think every aspect of it, including the encounter set that comes with it, is pretty solid for what it is, and it works really well. It's hard for me to poke holes in it. But ultimately, I do tend to like the story scenarios a little bit more, and I think this one did a well job to differentiate it from the other story scenarios. But it also has a little bit of the same, like the prelates, and like Hela, there's like a minion guardian in a way. So I don't know if it's a little same for me on that one. But the big thing as the scenario as a whole, and the reason why I would say the final Apocalypse is better as a complete package, is I don't think Gene Pool Or, sorry, not gene pool. Yeah, gene pool, the infinites encounter set. Even though it's optional, it is kind of the one to expect in it. I don't think it should be. It didn't need to be in this scenario. I think felt like it was more tacked on, like they needed an encounter set from the campaign to put in the box.
Right. So let me just make sure I got this right. The one you poked holes in is what you have for number 1. Okay, I got it.
So I'm a little more critical on number 3 Apocalypse, but I think I still like it overall more.
Sure. As an opinion of what your like, what you value and like factor, you place that above the other one. I can make sense. I see that.
Yeah. But it feels like straight up like the mechanisms and the how like the scenario itself is complete and there's no like issues. I think the final boss, Apocalypse, probably overall is better.
Squeeze.
But I just like the story more.
Yeah. And that's fine. And that's why they're each of our rankings. But there you go. The right and the wrong one.
You chose Final Boss Apocalypse as number 1, right?
Yeah. So mine would go Apocalypse En Sabah Nur, number 1, Apocalypse Scenario 3, number 2, Eunice, Dark Beast, and then the Four Horsemen.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. For a moment, I thought we were going to be on the same, but yeah, the last one switched us up.
Yeah. I should have saw that coming, knowing your background.
Yeah, I was really scared with the third scenario, like it was going to be a little difficult because just the way reading it and stuff. But once we played it, I was like, yeah, I think this is a fun one. It's I like the acceleration, the beats, the progression of it.
I think that one has good timing decision points built into that one. I do like that.
And I think overall the art is more entertaining on the third Apocalypse, especially the no longer worthy slipping on a banana off his throne.
Okay, I like it.
Or his giant feet on his tyrant's throne card.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, there you have it. All the villains summed up.
It.
Finally, we got here. Now we can move on. We have some. We talked about the villains a whole bunch. Maybe we'll talk about some heroes and some upcoming episodes. We got a few heroes.
What the people really want.
That's right. I love them some heroes. Any final words, Ryan?
Not really. Age of Apocalypse. I think it was another good box. I mean, it has its up and downs. I think overall it's a good box. But I think it is best played without the campaign.
Okay. I knew you were going to say that. But yeah, I'm with you. Five good scenarios. Some are better than others, but that's with any box. Definitely a good value for villains in this one. And we want to know your ranking of the scenarios within the Age of Apocalypse box. Let us know. You can reach out to us at marvelchumpionspod@gmail.com. We would love to see your ranking. And as always, if you want to go from a chump to a champ, listen to the Marvel Champions podcast. Thanks.
Take care.
I am Apocalypse. You dare challenge Apocalypse again, blasphemer?